It's funny, whenever we prepared to do these shoots, I was trying to think of something specifically, and I've got to sit through most of the other guys' stories, and so I thought I could go maybe a different path, a different route than everybody else, but every time I come back to the same thing. And Zach and I, Harris earlier had made the joke about how we all kind of become our father. No matter how different we are, there's some element of us that will always seem to follow along the same path that our dad does. And I always wanted to be that person who was never like my dad, to be honest. And my dad but he has some attributes that I just can't shake. You go all the way back, some of my earliest memories is my dad's affection for technical gadgets. He always wanted to be on the cutting edge of whatever it was technological out there. So we were one of the first people to get cable vision way back in the 1970s. We had the very first version of the Atari. We had every earliest version of all of the video games. My dad got me a Sony Walkman in 1979. I can remember him dancing around the house. That's how he gave it to me. He even stayed up all night. The week before Christmas, he stayed up every day playing my Atari before he gave it to us. And he had it set up in his room. He played with it for a week, and my mom had to convince him to put it out. He played with it so late Christmas Eve night that he actually had to come up with some little scheme in order to hide it from us. And so that was my dad. He always did those things. But he had this other thing that he always did, and it's the one thing that I still do to this day. And I don't know why I do it. I just do it. But he always did this thing that amazed my brother and sister and I. And it didn't matter what we got him. He always knew what it was before he opened the package. And he would go through this whole little ordeal where he would pick the box up, he'd smell it, he'd shake it a little bit, he'd weigh it, he'd lay it down, he'd look at it, he'd measure it. He did all of these things. And every time he knew what it was. It amazed us. I never asked him how he knew. We just thought, dad sense. Dad knows things. And so years passed, had my own kids. For whatever reason, the very first time my kids were old enough to give me a present, I did the exact same thing. I picked up the package and I shook it a little bit, held it up in the air, tried to look like I was looking through a light at it, smelled it, even kind of licked on it a little bit and go, socks. My kids are like, well, how did you know? It's like, I never did ask him, but I think I know what it is. I think kids kind of give dads a similar thing all the time. It's really hard to buy something for your father. So you just kind of come up with the same things pretty regularly. And so after a while, you kind of get a pretty good feel on what a package feels like. And so you have all the things that I can remember about Christmas. It seems like 90% of them revolve around my dad and how he was. And the crazy thing is, I'm pretty much the same thing.